These three mistakes that it's easy for the self-taught artist to fall into are big mistakes because each of them will significantly block ongoing progress. Each of them will block off the way that many of the challenges and decisions of drawing need to be channeled through. But if we're not aware of our need to consider these three things, we can spend a lot of time wandering in the drawing wilderness, getting more and more frustrated when all the time we keep putting into drawing doesn't seem to lead to any improvement. And the first one is failing to understand that learning to draw is learning a skill. And as is the case with learning any skill, it's about study, it's about practice, it's about effort. Think back to school. Now, outside of school, we get to choose whether we draw or not. But it's still a skill that we're learning. And learning is a skill in itself. There are good ways to learn. There are, less productive ways to learn. And learning something the right way, using the right strategies and approaches, makes an enormous difference, can really accelerate our improvement, our capacity to improve. And equally, presuming things about the drawing process that aren't true and not appreciating the things that are true can mean we end up just doing the same things over and over again with the same issues, with the same problems. Think back to the difference between a good teacher and a not so good teacher back in high school. The difference to the enjoyment of the experience and of the learning process, and also of the learning progress, how much we were able to learn when the teacher was one that we could tell was a good teacher, was skilled in teaching. That means they're skilled in understanding how their students learn and can organise what they teach and the way they teach it to maximum efficiency, maximum benefit to those students. Drawing is not a talent, a special gift we're born with that we just turn on and let it flow everywhere and think that basically that's all we have to do, and then recognition will come to what we're doing. Now, we shouldn't underestimate that when we start to learn to draw, we don't all learn to start in the same place, because just living, general life experiences and skills that we've picked up in life up to a certain point, for some people, what they happen to have gone through and done will equip them better for starting to draw in terms of skill sets and ways of thinking and observing than possibly another person. So we won't necessarily have day one of our drawing journey in the same spot. But we each start a long way back from where we need to go, and we will both have to work really hard with our study, with our practice, with the effort that we apply if we want to get there. No one gets a free ride. No one has it easy. But some people, by chance or by design, fall into better ways of learning than others, and that can make it seem like they have some sort of hidden, unseen advantage. The second point is that when we start to learn to draw, we need to have a target. We need to have an idea of where we're wanting to be with this new skill that we're learning at a certain period, or at least at the end of the process. And when I do a course that someone else has worked out, that's already been set. There's a curriculum that I've probably looked at. I've chosen it because I see that what's in this course are all things that I want or I need to have for something that I want to do. But when we have the desire to draw within us, wanting to get out, and if we haven't really thought about the drawing process and what's involved and what's learning and how does it happen that we become better, it's easy to think that we just really need to pick up a pen and start drawing, and if we do lots and lots of practice, we will get better at what we're doing. But the truth is, we only get better at what we're trying to change. So if we don't have a goal in sight, if we don't have a sense of where I'm wanting to go with my drawing, then I'm not going to know if I'm getting there. And drawing as a broad subject is simply way too expansive. There are too many things we can do in terms of what we draw and how we draw and the goals we're after when we draw and how much time it takes us to draw and all of these things. It's virtually infinite. So I can spend a lot of time choosing to do things that maybe look interesting, exciting, or feel relevant to me, but actually aren't going to take me anywhere to any consistent place, let alone a specific place that I want to get to. The simple truth is that YouTube videos on drawing, as is the case in virtually everything, can be a very random experience. As creators, we're presenting something from our experience viewpoint, with what we know, with how we've done it, with what we've been taught, with what's given us success. And it's clearly worked enough for us to feel that we've got something positive to say and hopefully helpful to say. But that doesn't mean that what I'm saying is necessarily going to be helpful for you with where you want to get to in your drawing. Because while I think we do get better at whatever we keep doing, what can so easily happen is, in light of understanding anything better, basically I keep doing the same thing over and over again, and I actually become better at doing that same thing with all of its problems, with all of its issues, because I've reinforced the mental processes of thinking of doing them and the hand-eye coordination to do them, and the sheer repetition of seeing them over and over again, looking the way I draw them, actually starts to blind me to how they really are. To navigate all the unhelpful diversionary activities I can do, videos I can watch, drawings I can try and draw, I need to have a sense of where I'm heading to. And it doesn't have to be complex. We don't have to map out a 5-year tertiary level drawing course. It can be as simple as, I'd like to be able to draw a very simple village street scene directly in pen in just 15 or 20 minutes that captures a sense of reality. It doesn't have to be very detailed, or maybe I'd like it to be very detailed, but take a bit longer. But whatever it is that we think is a reasonable reaching point for our first period of time, whether it really is practical, whether it is something we can reach in the time frame we think or not, it's our starting point, and it's going to be perfect as a starting point. Because the thing about starting points is, once we've started, now we can actually start to refine our thoughts about where we're going. We become more aware of the work. We become more aware of new possibilities. We become more aware of the time frame it might take us to get there. And so we're continually slowing down or speeding up or widening out or narrowing in the sorts of things we're doing depending on that end point. It doesn't lock us into anything, but it guides us in every decision that we make. And perhaps it's not as obvious as we'd think that many drawing teaching videos, while each of them can seem either entertaining or helpful or instructive or appeal to us in some way, that we can watch several and we felt that all of them have helped us, and yet they're teaching something that's quite contradictory to the other two. They're not compatible because there are many different ways we can draw. There are different ways of thinking, different ways of translating what we're seeing into marks on the paper, different philosophies about what we're doing and how we're doing it, and different targets we're trying to hit in terms of super realistic looking or in terms of very loose and gestural or really semi-abstracted. If we don't have some idea, some starting point of where we'd like to go with our drawing, we can spend a lot of time wandering around lost, and then in the end, not arriving at any place we want it to be. And this next point, as the self-taught artists, we need to learn that we have to mark our own work. I'm not just the student in this, I'm the teacher as well, which is why I have to have a sense in the last point of where I'm going. But in order to be measuring, am I getting there, in order to be able to assess, are the sorts of lessons I've been giving myself or choosing for myself being helpful or not, I have to keep marking my work. And in order to mark it, I have to have a picture of what it's meant to look like in my head, of how it's going to look at the end. And it can be very helpful to look at the work of other artists who do a sort of drawing style and media and subject that we would like to do, because that gives us some sense of the possibilities. I don't think it's helpful to set out to try and somehow artificially recreate their style in our own drawing style that's developing, but certainly use what they're doing to have a sense of what's possible, and then to find our own way of expressing our marks, to create something that says something similar, but in our own drawing voice. And if we think back to school, sometimes when our teacher marked our work, we actually had to redo it because we hadn't demonstrated that we'd learned enough of what we had to learn to be able to progress and then be able to learn the things that were coming next. And if I don't have a teacher to mark my work, I need to mark it myself. And I'm not saying we're going to be expert at this, but learning to mark is a skill. And we can improve and get better at skills when we apply ourselves to learning them in a helpful way. And the practice we get from looking at our own work and really trying to analyze what is not working the way I want it to work. And again, you can see I need to have a sense of how I want it to look because that's working in my head. So I need to have that to be able to assess what's wrong with my drawing, because it goes beyond just perspective angles that are wrong. We can work that out when we mark our work in conjunction with our reference without much problem. But there's an awful lot in drawing which is a matter of choice. And it's the way we combine all these choices together that largely starts to reveal the drawing style we're going to move into from the consistency that we'll develop in using it. I have a number of videos on critiquing our work as artists because it's so important. And we have to be ruthless when we do it. We're not trying to spare our feelings. We're trying to give ourselves the direction that we're going to need to get to the place we want to get to in an encouraging space of time. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. If you're a self-taught artist, I hope these thoughts are helpful in helping you to get set up really at the start, or at least wherever you're at now, to maximize your journey's productivity from here, to start to tap into effective learning strategies that can be applied to your drawing and start to see the benefit that they can bring. But look, whatever you're drawing, wherever you're up to, whatever ways you are or aren't doing it, make sure you have fun, and then you can't lose. I'll see you next time. Bye.